Hey, Alan, can you do this demo real fast?
Yeah.
So Alan's gonna do a demo of DevMatch.
Absolutely. So DevMatch, let me just move this here. DevMatch is, again, a technical assessment platform that allows you to run technical assessments that are simulations of real life engineering challenges, as opposed to having algorithmic or data structure based questions when you're running interviews. So this is what you would do as a recruiting manager or hiring manager. So I have this project demo. You can come into DevMatch and just basically create your project. And then the project is just your way of saying, I want to hire this one individual or this many individuals with this title, and just kind of how long am I willing to set the end and start date. There's a description. You might have another set of administrators. You also have problems. You select the problems from the pool of problems that we have. Right now, there's very few, but there's a few problems right now that allow you to assess web development, machine learning in Python, and a few other small things in HTML. But the core is that anybody can come in and create their own assessments on DevMatch. And the other thing is that you can actually create your own assessments if you have the time and technical ability to create your assessments. And then you start adding your candidates here. Let's say we invite Alan, Gonzalez, and then you put their email, and then you invite them. You can have calibration users. Calibration users are people that you trust, that are kind of good at whatever this task is asking. And then you basically send it to them just to see, hey, what do you think about this assessment? And then whatever they say or they score doesn't really count towards the ranking or the submissions. And that's it. So then you actually send the assessment. We really don't want to create an ATS, but that's kind of what's happening behind the scenes. ATS being the applicant tracking. So right now we use some other technical applicant tracking systems. So now that's it. That's it from your perspective as a recruiter. Let's say you're non-technical recruiter, and then that's all you need. You send something from the pool of candidates to your candidates, and that's it. If you do know a thing or two about what you're hiring for, you can go to the problem, to the Explore page, and create a problem. And then in here, you can create a new problem. It can be either public, because you can let the community use your assessment, or it can be private so that only you can use it. And then in here, we have documentation on how to fill out the all important code aspect. So the code is what basically tells you what are you going to be asking the candidate, what are they going to be evaluated on, and all those things. And then, as I mentioned, we have a bunch of assessments right now, but we're building the documentation and the platform so that many more people can come in and contribute.
Or assessments pass fails are like a grade, like A, B, C, D.
I'll show you. So let's say that I invited myself. I actually didn't invite myself because this is your account. But this is what I see. So as a candidate, I received an email, and I go into my email, and then I click, oh, Jason has invited me, and this is what I see. And what I get is this, the arena. You have 1 hour to solve this assessment. And
like they can't take a break. They can't like pause or anything. It's like 1 hour.
It's 1 hour. It's 1 hour. And I know it's tough, but it's really the best way to really be able to compare one to another. Because sometimes you give assessments and then you get a really good assessment answer, and you don't know if this person took 8 hours. That's why it looks so great. And the other hand, you have another person that submitted something that looks just enough. They did exactly what they were asked to do, they only took 45 minutes. So what we said is just like every single assessment is 1 hour. And the other thing is that we asked a bunch of candidates, a bunch of people that are usually taking assessments, and they said, I am tired of taking assessments that are 5-6 hours long. So
that's ridiculous right there.
That's kind of the thing. Now, this is an assessment. This is actually the assessment that we created for you, Jason. So as you can see, we have a realistic assessment, which it says, you must complete a few pending resources for this human resources backend service. You have a GraphQL endpoint that uses DynamoDB, which happens to be the real case. And then here's what I want. The list users unit test is failing because blah, blah, blah. The update user API is broken. We need a new employee count field. So things that you would come in and ask your developer if they were coming to work tomorrow. Now, the other thing is that, as you can see, it is not that we provide you with a.
So how do you come up with this assessment, right? Like just something like you research it on how, I mean, because it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty detailed, right? I mean, like.
I do. Ideally, in the scaling plan, you would do this yourself or your engineer.
Okay.
Because we're targeting companies that already have some sort of engineering capabilities because they hire more. Like startups hire one engineering talent and then that's it for like a year, and then they hire more. But ideally, you would already have somebody that knows what they're doing.
But see, I think what you're doing, I think this would be golden for like non-tech startup founders. Right?
Absolutely. I don't
obviously be more work on your part because, like, you know, like me, I have no idea how to do this, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's so many tech founders, non-tech startup founders, like are going through so many tech people, right? Either because like my own story, you know my own story, right? You're like, it's been a fucking a shit field, right?
Yes.
But like, something like this will help so many non-tech founders like be successful, I think. Or at least increase the chance of them being successful.
Absolutely. Some people
and maybe you charge the non-tech founders more money. I don't know.
Well, that's a great idea. Someone called this the kind of your co-pilot when you're hiring technical talent. And the idea is that you don't have to come up with all this. Like this is custom made for you. Like we took the steps, but at some point we're going to have enough assessments that one of them is going to be close enough to what, so you don't even have to create it.
You know, like a lot of tech people, like, you know, they say that they're doing, but they don't really do, you know, a lot of, you know, bullshit going on, you know, like, yeah.
And the other thing that we did with the pro seed that we spoke about earlier is that we said, well, can we create some sort of coding, some sort of program or an add-on that is going to create the assessments on the fly just for you. Like we can go into your website, see how it's built, at least the front end, and just create an assessment just for you. Yeah. Maybe that would be amazing.
Like, I know you focus like you said, engineering teams already, but I just think it's a game changer for non-tech founders, right? Like if I was a I would say, hey, like maybe spend more time, like focus on non-tech founders, right? Cause like, I know so many non-tech founders here in Seattle have trouble like finding tech talent. This would like be a godsend to them.
It will be a godsend.
At a cost, of course.
And let me show you how I, as a candidate, will do this. So I come in and I look at the Git repository. And again, this is not given to you, like it's not pre-made, like you need to know how to use Git, Git being the version control system that this this problem uses. And again, the Git service is not really tied to this problem. It's not really tied to DevMatch. It can be anything. You can use anything. You can use GitHub. We have problems that use GitHub actually. But in this case, we use a private Git repo that is hosted by us, that is created just for you. So in this case, we say, I don't know, the update user API is broken. So now I need to kind of look for where this thing is. And this, the thing that I'm doing right now is essential. So you don't want somebody that just kind of, you tell them what to do and they look for it and then, oh, I found it. Yes. No, navigating code from somebody else that somebody else wrote, massive skill that you need to have, because more often than not, you're going to come to projects that have already been created for you, that have been created by your previous developer and then the previous developer and then the previous. So what you want is somebody that knows where things are. And maybe the names are not kind of the best, but that's kind of reality.
Like this is English, to be honest with you, right?
Yeah. So it is for some people that apply. That is massive. We get people that apply, open the assessment, and then they bail because they don't really know how to do it. That's great because you save them time, you save your time yourself. And even though they don't know what they don't know how to fix it in the 1 hour time slot that they have, what is being asked of them in the job.
Does anyone come back and say an hour is not enough time?
They say, well, some of the recent feedback that I remember is that this is certainly something that is pressured, like you feel the pressure of the 1 hour thing, but it's not undoable.
Yeah,
it's definitely not undoable. This assessment that I'm showing you right now is brand new, so we're probably going to tweak it.
And you did all this yourself, or were your developers who did this?
This one I did myself. Yeah, the developers work on everything else. So, for instance, the arena, the actual arena, like the submit, the time left, everything, like all the structure, the other developers did. But the assessments are always.
But definitely, sometimes pretty soon you gotta like the other people do this, right?
Yeah,
obviously you can't do yourself.
As a matter of fact, today this sprint is when, for the very, 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 very first time in the history of DevMatch, somebody else is creating an assessment. Okay. So that's amazing. Anyways, you come here and then you make changes. Let's say, here is my change. This is just a comment. It is not going to be meaningful to anything. Now, how do you push your changes? You did something. How do you push it? You do a commit. Why? Because that's what you would do. On the real job, and then you push. And then I typed fast, but what I did stops people. So even just from the Git URL to the where you have the code, some people say, oh, it doesn't work. This GitHub repository doesn't work. I'm like, no, this is not a Git repo. This is not a GitHub repo. It's a Git repo. And if you have some experience, you'll know that this is not a GitHub. And this has nothing to do with GitHub for some reason. And then again, you push, and then here's where we come in as DevMatch. You submit. Now the submission, what it's going to do is going to take what you've done and run through some tests. And now you have this thing. And now this thing is going to automatically evaluate against the test cases that we have given you and see if what you've done really does indeed satisfy the test cases. So this is critical because, number one, it tells the candidate what they're missing. If they score 0, now they know why. If they score 100, now they know why. And this is the other pillar that during the customer development interviews we learned. Some people spend their time doing an assessment and they don't get any feedback. They just get ghosted. And so at the very least, you now know by using DevMatch that, hey, you got all the test cases.
So basically you're adding value to these candidates.
To the candidates.
At no cost to them, right?
To the candidates, yes, just by participating. And that accrues to the value that they kind of relate to the company.
So you have all these developers get better.
Yes, yes.
What happens if someone like accidentally click submit? Can they what happens?
They can submit again. They can submit again. I can submit again. So
you can take the assessment multiple times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But
yeah.
Each one has to be within an hour. Okay.
Yes. So right now we have some time left. So I click submit, and right now this thing is being evaluated, and it'll give me an assessment of how well I did on every single test case that I'm doing right now.
From the assessment you've done so far, what percentage of people have actually passed the assessments?
That depends on the assessment. So we have an example over here. So let me give you an example. So now I'm going to go back to the recruiter dashboard. Let's say that you sent out your assessment to 100 candidates or so. and now you're back, you want to see how they did, and you look at the pipeline, and the pipeline tells you, okay, so I had 51 candidates that I sent out this to. 10 of them were invited. For some reason, I didn't invite, maybe because they didn't have authorization to work in the US. So I only invited 10. 8 opened the problem, and 8 completed the problem, but only 6 actually.
That's interesting that 2 didn't submit after they completed. That's interesting right there.
That happens all the time.
Does it?
Yeah, because
you think it's because like they think they didn't do a good job at it.
They don't understand what's going on. In some cases, like and they know it, and they tell us, which I very much appreciate. They come into the assessment. Because when you're applying, you apply to 100 jobs, right? Yeah. And then some of them you don't really know what's going on, but you still apply, and then you might pass the interview, but you don't really know.
Well, if you complete it, you would think you take one extra step to submit the button, right?
I mean, yeah, but some people just come in, read it, and number one, they either don't, like we're saying, they're like, no, I don't really know graph or something, or they don't want to.
Yeah.
That is the other massively important thing. So they say, oh, you know what? I don't want to work on web development more. I want to work on iOS. And I see that this is web development.
Yeah, like with assessment, you don't actually say the name of the company, right? Like you don't say this assessment for Kevin's HR, this assessment for, like, ABC company. Okay, so it's not like they get this assessment for Kevin's HR. Let me use this Kevin's HR. Ain't no way in how I want to work for this guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
In your case, we did it because you said, yeah, it's okay to use your name and your code and all that stuff. But in other cases, we don't use it.
Okay.
And then the colors here are the sources, the different sources. Maybe some of them were recruited via LinkedIn. Some of them were recruited via Handshake.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. Yeah.
So you know where people are coming from. And some people submit, some people don't. And this is the all important ranking. Let's say 8 people that submitted.
So Laura got 100.
Laura got 100. So you can see, okay, Laura opened the project on this time, and then they immediately scored 100.
One thing I like about this, like, let's suppose, like, I'm making this up, don't take this personal. People listen, like, suppose you have a company, right? And you're like, you know what? Let's suppose Laura's like a redhead from Ohio, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, from Michigan, you hate people in Ohio, right? Like, I'm a fan, I hate Ohio people, whatever case may be. But you're like, damn, the business person, like, fuck, she's got a fucking 100.
Yeah.
Like, maybe I could overlook her being from Ohio, right?
Well,
which I really like about this.
You're alluding to a feature that we have not implemented, only talked about. But when you do this process, if you can choose to do that in the settings, so you will be able to, you won't see their names.
Okay.
So you cannot see, all you have to do is just send the assessment, wait a few days, and then say, give me the top 10%.
Yeah.
And then only then you will see who's who.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, we see people that submitted. Let's take a look at Laura. So let's say you have an engineer on your team. You can take a look at exactly what is it that they changed. So in this case, this is a demo. So even though I changed something else, we're seeing something else. But you can see their code. You can see Laura's code and see how well they did. And the very important thing is that you can use this as a starting point for the final round of interviews. Yeah. So you can invite Laura and say, you're invited to the interview and we're going to go over your solution. So you're going to ask questions about why did you do it this way? Why not this way? What are the downsides of your implementation? All those things. And that is just a much better way of doing an interview rather than starting from scratch, even though they already spent time, an hour, understanding this problem.
Yeah. When I suppose you interview these 4 people, right? Laura, Kathy, Lee, and Rio, right? To me, like, Laura is like heads above everybody else. But then again, like, you got to work with people, right? So maybe Laura's like a toxic person, right? And this, and maybe the person who scored 25, like, say, like, I love this, I love that,
Yeah.
So it's an indicator of, man, like, you can't ignore 100, right?
It is an indicator. And what we're saying is that this is only like a screening assessment is mostly for who do you not want to hire, not who you want to hire.
Yeah.
It's just who do you not want to hire. You can now spend your time talking to Norton, Kathy, Rayo, Lee, and Laura, you know, and you're going to have 5 meetings and you're going to spend some time with them. And, but guess what? They already, well, not Norton, but both the top 4 already demonstrated that they have some idea of what needs to be done. So you won't be spending time with the other 51, you know? That's where we save. And this is so powerful.
This is a time saving.
It is so much time saving.
And startups have, time is such precious commodity.
And here's the massively good part that I like to emphasize. For your case in particular, Jason, this is your code. This is your code. This is Capness HR. So when they match this, when they match your interview for cultural fit, and then they start working the next Monday, they already know. You already know that they know. They demonstrated this to you. That's the power of DevMatch.
Seems to be a powerful thing. Definitely got something here.
And then, of course, you can come in as a candidate and then just solve problems for fun, and because
is that, are you going to gamify that some kind of
absolutely
way?
Absolutely. That's why that was the main aspect of one of our UX researchers, Hannah. She spent a lot of time. She created 2 papers on how we're going to gamify this thing. So anyways, this is DevMatch.